A CBS News special report continues. The presidential inauguration. This portion of Inauguration Day is sponsored by Comtrex, the multi-symptom cold reliever, and by the General Foods family of fine products, pleasing you and your family for over 50 years. And now from Capitol Hill, here again is Walter Cronkite.
Just an hour and 56 minutes from now, if all goes on schedule, Ronald Reagan, former sports announcer, former movie actor, former Union president, only divorced man ever to take the oath of office as President of the United States, and the oldest, he'll hear those stirring refrains of "Hail to the Chief" for the first time, having taken the oath of office as the 40th President of the United States. Let's go back to the of the east side of the White House, which incidentally was originally designed as the back door of the White House, but has been considered the front door for most of its years. Jim McManus is at that north portico. Jim, come in.
Yes, Walter, the Reagan limousine has just pulled up here outside the north entrance of the White House underneath the great columns of this portico. President and Mrs. Carter now just stepping down to the top step. The greeting, the President shaking hands with Mr. Reagan. The warm greeting that we saw exemplified here just a few minutes ago when Vice President Mondale and Mrs. Mondale were here to greet the Vice President-elect and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. George Bush. The President, up close, Walter, looks remarkably well for a man who spent last night working on the hostage crisis during a second long night for him. Now posing for photographers here.
Comments right now? Well, I think the President-elect and his wife will enjoy the new home.
Mr. President, are the hostages off the ground yet? God, look at that.
Just want to come, sorry. They're running just a little bit behind the schedule that had been announced earlier. President-elect Reagan was supposed to have been entering onto the platform right at this specific moment with the herald trumpets sounding, 14 trumpeters and a couple of drummers from the U.S. Army herald trumpets. But for some reason, a delay. I wonder what that could be about. Here we are.
President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, and the Vice President, Walter Cronkite.
Whether you could hear or not, but President Carter was just asked if the hostages are out, and he responded saying, "Not yet, not yet." Walter, again, I don't know whether you could hear as President Carter entered or not, but he was asked whether or not the hostages were out, and his response as he walked by was, "Not yet."
Something like that.
Apparently that's the story. CBS has been told that the planes have not left the airport as yet. I thought I noted, Bruce and Bob, there a moment ago that Mrs. Carter seems rather grim at this moment. We've been told throughout this transition that she took the defeat much harder than the President himself and has really hardly recovered from it. It was thought that she had kind of brightened up a bit in the last couple of weeks, but she doesn't look very, very happy today.
Well, I suppose it's just one more straw, you know. You absolutely want to go out on a high note, and the high note was getting those people back.
And Mr. Ford said, with the graciousness that is his, that he did not want to upstage the day for Ronald Reagan. And there is some other talk also that there was a feeling that if he came and Richard Nixon did not, then the Nixon absence would be even more noteworthy, and they didn't want that either. Here is Ronald Reagan.
You were talking a while ago,
Last
Walter,
few minutes as a civilian.
talking a while ago about how much younger the Congress is now. You know, Mr. Carter is going to be one of the youngest ex-presidents that we've had in quite some time.
Indeed he is, which gives him many years of activity, which would be his to decide upon, of course. Says he's going to lecture, teach, write his memoirs, but nothing planned beyond that. Fish, of course, as he likes to do, and hunt. But he may be in the position of some of the other young exitees, is there such a word, from this high office. He may get again into public service. Hoover, you remember, many years of publisher, wrote 14 books, I think, or something like that, but he did some major studies on world food problems, on governmental reorganization. He's the most recent who has been that active.
Mr. Carter, of course, has talked about doing religious work from time to time, and I suppose maybe that's what he'll turn to.
It could happen, of course.
Remember 4 years ago, Gerald Ford left this inauguration and went directly to a golf tournament.
Yes. Well, it appears that President Carter will not be going directly to any such restful retreat as that. He is scheduled to be named by President Reagan as his delegate to the United Press has sent a flash at 11:35 that the hostages are free. We do not know yet any details of that or whether it's official.
Bulletin. I think they'd be cheering that outside here too, Walter.
Well, except for that old lady who was introduced to us earlier down there, I don't know that anybody's tuned in to events in the outside world. Certainly all eyes now are on the inaugural platform and the arrival there of Ronald Reagan, native of Illinois, resident of California, to be the 40th President of the United States. The United Press is now giving some details, although it seems to be written simply from the flash they got earlier. Tehran airport officials are the ones they are quoting as to the fact that the hostages have taken off after 440 days of captivity, 444 days of captivity. That's still a United Press report. We do not have that officially from Iran or from the United States government. We had an earlier report by the Associated Press, which did not seem to be true, quoting a policeman and then an official that they had taken off.
Mark Hatfield, Chairman of the Joint Congressional Committee.
And here the ceremony begins.
Will present the program.
Welcome to the historic first inauguration under the panoply of the West Front of our nation's capital. The 40th President of the United States takes his oath of office in a day when a tide of new hope is rising throughout our land. As an affirmation of this new hope, let us all join Michael Ryan of the United States Marines in singing a verse of America the Beautiful. Will you all... Please be seated. This new hope is not promoted in lyricism, but is tough and realistic hope, which is the instinct of the soul, the energizer of the mind. For our invocation today, I present President-elect and Mrs. Reagan's pastor, the Reverend Don Mumma of the